This is Balance of Power with Joe Mathieu and Carol Massar, live from the Milken Global Conference.
We're back at Milken, day 3 here on a special edition of Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. I'm Joe Mathieu, alongside Carol Massar here in Beverly Hills.
Time's flying.
It is flying. It's somehow already the second hour of this program, and we're glad you're with us here on Bloomberg with the voices that are driving the markets today and a range of guests here that are bringing us a lot of fascinating interviews, Carol, including our next one that's going to be taking a look at the markets here, rallying on news from the Middle East once again.
Another record. We try to make sense of it because there's still a lot of uncertainty around the world. And, you know, we talked about the war in Russia and Ukraine. So, you know, there's a lot that are facing that's facing investors. But as we say, we kind of continue to see these markets grind higher. We do want to bring in a great voice when it comes to markets, well known to the Bloomberg audience. Seema Shah is with us, Principal Global Investors, Chief Global Strategist at Principal Asset Management. Welcome, welcome. You said you love Milken.
I do. It's my favorite time of year. It's just so interesting, all the conversations that are going on.
Well, we'll talk about that because you did a panel. There's a lot of enthusiasm out there.
There is a lot of enthusiasm. And, you know, I came here and I thought that the geopolitical conflict could be weighing on people's minds. And although everyone acknowledges it and says that they think it could go on until, you know, even to next year, they're still really optimistic. And you're seeing that play out in all of the conversations. So I think seeing market at record highs, actually, it's very consistent with the dialogue that we're having here.
Even as your principal well-being index shows a sharp rise in economic anxiety. How do we rationalize all of this, or are you going to tell me it's a K-shaped economy?
It is actually a very K-shaped economy because that principal well-being index is really focused on small businesses. It surveys over 1,000 companies. And the real thing that we've been seeing, at least certainly over the last 2 years, is this feeling of pressure, cost pressures just building up and struggling with the amount of policy uncertainty. And then more recently, they are actually struggling with so many of the different factors, even oil prices. These are companies which are local businesses, but they're feeling that all of these global issues are weighing on them. But that is very different to what you're seeing from larger companies. So they're struggling with the navigation, and that is absolutely the K-shaped economy that we keep hearing about, which is struggles for some segments, but not an economic crisis because it doesn't hit that top level, that aggregate data.
So it's basically, I'm stressed out, but I'm going shopping. That's how I read it, which I do. But no, you know, Seema, I do think about the K-shaped economy, and so many people come on and say the wealthy are doing well, the stock market's hitting record, the president highlights that as well, and yet there are a significant part of our population that is having a hard time. When does that economically start to hit? And I just kind of can't get my head around that when there are still so many Americans having a tough time.
But, I mean, it's amazing because looking at the figures, I mean, the top 20% of income households account for about 80% of net wealth in the U.S. I mean, these numbers are insane. Wow. But they are generally driven because they have so much exposure to corporate equities. I mean, almost 90% of corporate equities, directly and indirectly, are held by that top 20%. So they're the ones that have been riding that wave and enjoying it. And so that provides a bit of resilience, certainly, but it's also vulnerability because if, like we're certainly not expecting this, but if you were to get a negative impact on the market, which drove some kind of correction, that's when you get an economic crisis. But the rest of the 80%, at some point it will leak through. This is a social issue at the moment, but at some point we'd expect this to be an economic issue if the administration doesn't confront it and deal with it.
If a war with Iran and a closed Strait of Hormuz is not that event that brings a reckoning in the market, what in the world would do it at this point?
Right, and you know, it's a great question because actually, I mean, it's not even just the Strait of Hormuz. If you just look over the last 6 years, the amount of shocks that we've had globally that the US has confronted.
Absolutely.
And yet you still haven't had that point where the economy or even the market has struggled. And this, to me, raises the point that, you know, policymakers are so active, either on the monetary policy side, on the fiscal side, innovation, deregulation, that you've created an economy which is so resilient that it can withstand a number of different shocks. The two caveats to that is if you get an inflation shock, which means that central banks cannot step in, or you were to get real concerns about the deficit. But that's also something we're not really seeing.
Well, that's amazing, because I do have a lot more money managers coming on, or people saying, this deficit. At some point, we have to deal with it.
100% of GDP.
Yeah.
Scary moment.
It's nuts. You say if we get an inflation shock. So obviously, I guess the spike in oil prices, certainly not for the U.S., even though we are feeling the pain at the pump. But I mean, what kind of inflation shock, in your view, could come to us?
So we're expecting headline inflation to be around 4% level. If you were to get this ceasefire not really holding and you get oil prices settling at about 125, then you could see headline up to about 6% on our forecast at the moment.
Wow.
6%.
But that doesn't hit the core inflation numbers too hard.
Yeah.
Right, so you can still see that for the Fed, at least particularly given that they can focus on labour markets, that you could still see some monetary loosening. It's really different if you look across to Europe, where the focus has to be on price stability. There is absolutely no tolerance, flexibility for higher inflation, and that's where you
So
get
we
the
could be in a
negative
world where
coming
Kevin
in.
Warsh is cutting interest rates in a 6% inflationary environment.
I think it'd be very difficult. I think unless you have a labour market which is genuinely falling apart, it's very difficult as a story to provide those rate cuts. But you certainly could be in a world where the ECB and the Bank of England are raising rates, and the Fed is firmly on hold.
Understood.
So that divergence is clear.
What do we need to understand about the global economy? It is a very different picture how we are all feeling, certainly in the United States, the impact of the war in the Middle East or the war with Iran. You go over to emerging economies, you go over to Asia, you go over to Europe. Like, they're feeling it differently.
They're feeling it differently because they're not just seeing the price shocks, they're already seeing the supply shortages.
Right.
So I was in Kenya a few weeks ago, and you've already seen that although government has stepped in to help on the price side, so really trying to insulate the population, they're dealing with supply shortages. So you've seen material costs increase by 30% in the space of 1 month. Right, fuel shortages in parts of India already. So that's where you start to see the pain, because households that are wealthy can handle the price increases. It's when the supply shortage comes through and that starts to hit supply chains and the goods that people are really reliant on. That's when you could see it really hitting, and then the global economy could at that point confront. But even in that scenario, it's really not the US. The US is still the least vulnerable and the most resilient in that picture.
In a global market, though, we might not be seeing the shortages, but we will be paying the prices here in the U.S.
You would certainly be seeing the prices, but I guess that comes back to the affordability issue, which is that the U.S. economy can be sustained by that top 20% because they account for so much of consumer spending.
So I want to go back to how we started, and you said this panel that you were on, there was so much enthusiasm and optimism. Are you enthusiastic and optimistic about the market environment right now?
I think that there are vulnerabilities within the market. It's been driven at the moment by all the AI euphoria. You've got really strong earnings, and then we know that the economic data is still really strong. If this conflict were to continue to persist and you get those supply shocks, that is a vulnerability. But it's very much concentrated in the US. But the other part of this is short-term issues. When we're trying to think about where are we in a year or two's time, the longer-term themes which have been driving international markets, Europe, Asia, focus on energy security, defense, AI infrastructure, that is still very much in play. And you could get opportunities at cheaper valuations. And I think that's also what's driving optimism, is that we've seen a lot of noise over the last couple of years. The market always does well. So why are you going to get out of the market when the headline could change in the next minute?
Remember we said this morning, or we were talking about, the market always goes higher.
Well, eventually, yes, that's for sure.
Not in a straight line.
So is the takeaway here in our conversation that this economy will not go into a recession because of the top of the K?
I think it's one of the takeaways is that the balance sheet strength of households and actually corporates is so strong that you're unlikely to see a recession in the US.
With $100 a barrel oil.
With $100 a barrel oil, but it's a different economy today than what it was 20, 30 years ago.
Very.
So that's also key. The concerns for us in the near term from a cyclical perspective are probably outside of the US. But even then, from a longer term perspective, we still think there are opportunities. It's just that you've got to be very careful which bits of the market are you picking? What you focus on the secular themes, which are very much in play, and if anything, are probably being catalyzed by the geopolitical conflicts, so defense, energy security, AI infrastructure.
Listen, I was young, but I remember the 70s, or my parents and family, and we had two cars, and one was an even license plate and an odd, and because certain days...
You have to go to the gas station twice a week in
That's
your house.
exactly. Certain days was even that you could go get gas, and certain, or odd. Like that was stinging for America.
The interesting thing, though, is in Asia, you're going into those kind of mini lockdowns to prepare for this.
Yeah.
But that is something that they've learned that they can handle through COVID.
Yeah,
so that's a learning, and it's ended up as a positive development for navigating.
Seema, have you met Americans? We like everything really cushy, and we want stock shelves. Seema Shah, always great.
Great to see you.
Really enjoyed it. Principal Global Investors, Chief Global Strategist, joining us right here at Milken. All right, let's get another check on that record run on Wall Street. Another rally. Let's toss it off to Charlie Pellet. He's back in New York.
Hi. Thank you very much, Carol Massar. Absolutely right about the record. However, we are off session highs right now. We do have the S&P 500 index, 73.39 where we stand. We're looking at a gain of 80 points right now, an advance of 1.1%. So to be sure, yes, a record. A record as well for NASDAQ and the NASDAQ 100 index. Right now, NASDAQ is up 1.5%. We've also got the NASDAQ 100 index advancing by 1.5% as well. Stocks are climbing around the world, joining gains in bonds as oil retreats on hopes that the U.S. and Iran are nearing a deal to end the war. Right now, we've got the 10-year yielding 4.35%. This against the backdrop of a VIX at just above 17, and the 2-year 3.86%, the 30-year 4.93%. Gold is rallying 2.9% to $46.86 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude have been trading below $95 a barrel right now, $95.41. WTI down 6.6%. Brent did move below $100 a barrel earlier today, 102.10 right now. Barrel of Brent down by 7.1%. Bitcoin just about flat on the day, 81,680 on Bitcoin. NVIDIA has bought $500 million worth of rights for shares in the fiber optic cable maker Corning, all part of a broader partnership between the two companies. Shares of NVIDIA up now by 4.1%. We do have shares of Corning rallying 13.5%. Semis getting a lift after earnings out last night from Advanced Micro Devices. AMD is surging by 16.4%. Anthropic has signed an agreement with Elon Musk's SpaceX to access computing resources from a large SpaceX data center known as Colossus One. This deal brings together two competitors in the race to develop more advanced AI systems. CNN founder Ted Turner has died at the age of 87. He announced in 2018 that he was suffering from Lewy body dementia. That's a progressive brain disorder, and largely disappeared from public life after that. Turner created several cable TV networks, including CNN, TBS, and Turner Classic Movies. Again, Ted Turner, dead at the age of 87. Recapping, stocks higher, S&P at a record up by 1.1%. Back we go to the Milken Conference in Beverly Hills. Once again, your hosts, here they are, Carol Massar and Joe Mathieu.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Charlie Pellet will have more on the markets coming up a bit later on this hour as we keep tabs on Wall Street, and another record run today. Pretty remarkable, and it has a lot to do with politics, with news from the White House, the president saying that there's a memo of understanding that could resolve into a peace deal, and it's something that we're going to be tracking throughout the day here on Bloomberg TV and radio as we wait for a response from Iran and some color, some detail as to what is on that sheet. This next conversation is going to sound a lot like we're back in Washington, Carol, as we explore a little bit more about what's been going on Capitol Hill with a budget process that's just now getting underway, and something that's come up a lot over the past couple of days. $1.5 trillion proposed budget for the Pentagon, which would be a 50% increase, Carol.
Any money left for anything else
that's
in America?
Good question. The president has said we're going to have to make cuts in other areas to make that happen.
Exactly. Let's get to our next guest, because he certainly is dealing with all of this. Aaron Cutler is with us. He's global regulatory partner and leader of the government relations and public affairs practice at Hogan Lovells. Lovells?
Hogan Lovells.
Lovells. I want to make sure I said it right. Welcome, welcome. You are a perfect voice, I feel like, because we are talking a lot about politics and geopolitics here at Milken. Top of mind, top of questions, or like, what is the questions that you are getting at this event this year?
What's happening in D.C., what's going to happen with the midterms, what's happening in the Middle East, what's President Trump going to do?
Do you have answers for all of those?
We're watching.
Yeah. We'll start with the budgeting process. Is the president going to get what he's asking for in this case? You've seen Pete Hegseth, Dan Kane, and others on Capitol Hill trying to make the case for not only $1.5 trillion, but also a supplemental budget request that might be coming to pay for the war in Iran.
I think what we've seen with the president is he always starts big.
Yep.
He doesn't always get everything he wants, but he usually gets most of what he wants.
There's a case to be made when it comes to replenishing depleted stocks here. Is the administration winning that argument?
I think they are. I think most folks in Congress think we need to plus up the defense budget pretty significantly. Absolutely.
This is a matter of catching up following years of underinvestment, some would say, when it comes to the defense industrial base. Does Congress find a way to coalesce around this?
I think they do, and I think this Pentagon has changed things up with the process in terms of more advancements with moving from just the sort of standard, like the big defense contractors. We've moved towards some of the smaller ones, more cutting edge. We've seen a lot of advancements there.
So AeroVironment and Rule, these are the kind of companies, Carol, that are going to be soaking up a lot of that money.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, you began as a lawyer on the Energy and Commerce Committee staff under Representative Joe Barton, a Republican of Texas. There was something that I heard on Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, and just talking about energy waste and carbon and flares and things that if we really kind of tapped into some of that, that would be a smart move. And maybe we're going to start to see some of that coming off of this war. Talk to us a little bit about that. And that has come up in your past, and some thoughts about how we can be smarter as nations, as a world, when it comes to energy consumption. Because there's a lot of waste out there.
I think there is a lot of waste, and I think what I've heard from this conference is that we're absorbing what's happening in Iran a lot better than anybody expected because of all the bipartisan advancements we've made in the past 20, 30 years since the oil shocks of the 70s. And
including alternatives and so on, or?
Including alternatives, including the work from the Energy and Commerce Committee, which has traditionally been a pretty bipartisan committee. A lot of advancements, 2007 energy bill, a lot of bipartisan legislation that's happened in Congress. We need more of it, but the U.S. has really led on that.
Do you think the president makes a mistake in not embracing more of alternative energy? Because everybody we've talked to with the AI build-out and the data center build-out says, yep, nuclear, alternatives, yep, all of it's going to be needed.
Well, I think he has. He's really been pushing nuclear, small modular reactors, that
you know what
technology.
I mean, though, in terms of solar and wind and so on.
Well, solar's there. I think he's just a little anti-offshore wind. That's
Doesn't like those windmills.
He does not like those windmills. But the other alternatives, he's definitely interested in.
It's going to be a big argument when Congress comes back to Washington, and it's been remarkable seeing how many lawmakers made their codel, if you will, to Milken this week about reconciliation. Republicans have the wheel right now, and they've got at least one more swing at the ball. And you can tell me if you think reconciliation 3.0 is ever even going to happen. But 2.0 is going to be a question of size, whether this is in fact skinny or if we're going to decorate this Christmas tree so we can see it from space. Which one do you see coming together?
I think the members are still discussing it. They're on recess this week. When they come back, they're going to have discussions about that. I think there's a lot of interest in making it bigger and not that skinny. So we'll see when they get back and what's achievable. What do they have the votes for? As you know, the House of Representatives right now, it's a razor-thin majority. Yeah. The Speaker's done an amazing job of getting bills through.
If they go beyond ICE and Customs and Border Protection, do we have a problem getting it over the finish line?
I think every time we say there's going to be a problem getting over the finish line, the Speaker figures out a way to get it done.
And we add a ballroom and somehow it gets passed.
Right. We do need more security, as we saw. I'm sure all your colleagues were at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Yeah, we need more security. If there was a ballroom, we wouldn't have needed the security. That incident would not have happened.
We could talk about that. I mean, we are living in a world where people say there's just too many guns around and there's too much, like there's just, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Hence the $1 billion request for additional security. I'll be curious to hear that debate unfold as well. It's great to have you with us today at Milken. Thanks for your insights. By all means. Aaron Cutler, Global Regulatory Partner Leader, Government Relations and Public Affairs Practice at Hogan Lovells. It's great to see you. And Carol, we're going to keep driving forward here in our second hour of Balance of Power, live from Milken with a gold medalist joining us straight ahead and one of the greatest drivers in the history of NASCAR. All in this hour. I know, right? Eric Gordon is going to be with us. What's really, Jeff Gordon, forgive me, Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon is, I think, an economist that I talked to. See, that hat is always on. No, but it's really interesting. Again, we continue to just kind of merge everything together. It's business, it's markets, it's politics, as you know, and so much more. And this, as we, of course, watch what's going on Wall Street, another record. So we continue to see some enthusiasm, and there's hope, fingers crossed, in terms of a resolution in the Middle East. This is Bloomberg. Yes, indeed, everybody. Day 3, Carol Massar, Joe Mathieu, live here at the Milken Institute Global Conference. And what I love about, and you're going to see when we get to this next guest, it's just the people that come here, big companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, public, not public, everybody in the financial markets, and it just gives you what I think is what we do here at Bloomberg so well, is snapshots of all walks of life.
Yeah, it's a full representation of the economy.
Yeah.
It's not just billionaires walking around here. There are a lot of small businesses. We've had a lot of politicians, a lot of different corners of the markets that we never get a chance to explore. That's why we come all the way here.
Yeah, I feel like it makes us all smarter.
Yeah.
Soren Bjorn is with us. He's CEO of Driscoll's. He joins us here on set. And I have to say, full transparency, I'm a big customer. I do like your berries.
Thank you.
Tell us about your business. You guys have been around for a while, seen different market cycles. Tell us about this cycle right now, because there's a lot coming out, all of you got.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, right? So, and today we are sort of all over the world, right? We grow in 26 countries, we sell in 65 or 70 countries, and so we've seen big changes, right? Overnight, we lost our entire market in the Middle East, which is our highest paying market in the world.
How much of that market was, how much of
It's about $200 million of revenue a year, and it just literally went to zero, right? It literally went zero overnight, right? And the company's going to be a really big company, right? It's, as I said, it's everywhere. We are in $7-8 billion range now, and so and we're in a category where consumers want to be, right? Fresh, healthy, delicious, great tasting berries. It's at the forefront of a lot of trends, right? Whether it's GLP-1 drugs, overall health trends.
Right.
So there are a lot of good dynamics, right? But there are obviously quite a few challenges at the moment.
When you're working in that many different countries, what does the president's tariff regime mean for your business?
There's some impact. In this market is primarily blueberries from South America that have still a 15% tariff.
Yep.
Obviously, U.S. MCA review is almost due, right? So, and that's massive for us.
Are you concerned about what that might become?
I think we're going to be okay. I don't think
does it stay right the way it is?
Yeah, I think there'll be some tweaks, right? I think country of origin rules, right? What is in the content of what Mexico and Canada makes that comes in the United States. That's a major
topic. How much
topic,
of your
but that
comes from Mexico?
A lot.
It's got to be an enormous share.
Yeah, it's the whole winter supply other than Florida strawberries, right? It comes from Mexico.
So half, 50%?
No, it's like 30-40% of what we sell in North America.
Enormous.
So it's a big number. Yeah. Right? It's a really big number. Yeah.
So, okay, but you think you can manage through?
As long as we don't get 15 or 20% tariffs. Yes.
Do you have a seat at the table? Do they talk to you as a player?
Yeah, I testified at the hearings back in December. I think that's, that was well met by the administration. I'm going to D.C. on Monday. Yeah. Have a meeting with the Trump administration.
Really?
And I think the signals we are getting are reasonably positive. And I think they have some targets that they're really going to go after, and that is not likely to impact us.
So, any growing that goes on in the United States?
Yeah, California is still the biggest area for us worldwide, right? And that has its own challenges, as much as we can beleaguer tariffs and stuff like that, know. This is a difficult state to operate in, right? Lots of regulation, costs are way up. And
you've got an immigration policy that's challenging your labor force. Are you able to fill all the jobs that you have right now?
We are. Yeah, I think
you said that as if you came pretty close to not doing so.
Yes, because it's been very tenuous, right? And there has been, clearly fear in our communities about what's going on. But I think there is a realization inside the administration that if they start going after the farms, we are not going to have food in 2 weeks. Right. It's going to go really fast.
The president does seem to make a carve out for agriculture in general. Is that true?
I don't think that's the official policy.
You need to hear that codified.
Yeah, and that would be nice to hear that is for sure the way it is, right? So that would take some of the tension out of the system. Right. And, without the immigrant workforce, we cannot grow all the fresh fruits and vegetables that we grow. And they're primarily grown in California, right? 70% of all fresh fruits, vegetables, and nuts are grown here in the state of California. And so we need the state to come off some of the regulations. We've got a very important gubernatorial election in California this year. Yeah. And we need the federal government and administration
Have you seen your farms rated?
No, we have not. Yeah.
One last question, and I'm just curious about food supply, and I think we have to start really thinking about that, whether it's climate change, access to water. What is it that we're not realizing? You are seeing it firsthand. Yeah. How close we are to maybe possibly some problems.
We are really close because in food, just like in many other things, we have single source of supply. So our company is working very, very diligently on trying to diversify our supply and so have more resiliency in our supply. One of the things we talk about in our company is we can't have sustainability if we don't also have resiliency. Yeah. So we're very focused on the resiliency. And tariffs and other things get in the way of that, right? Because if we can't import berries from Mexico in the wintertime, there's going to be periods where we just don't have any berries, right? And that's not good. We all need to eat healthier foods, and we're a big part of that, and so we need to have some help there.
Really interesting conversation, fascinating. Soren Bjorn, CEO of Driscoll's. I buy the raspberries 2 at a time. I can't just buy one.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely love that. Big fans of the products here. I'm Joe Mathieu alongside Carol Massar. Well, because my mom's watching, I'll say organic.
Okay.
Much more to follow. As I mentioned, an Olympic gold medalist is with us and one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. Think about that for a minute.
I want to jump in right to our next two guests because they just are at a panel, The Legacy Play, How Global Sport Shapes Cities, Economies, and Culture. And we think about so many things that bring communities together, and sports is certainly one. So delighted to have,
We got a star here. They're about to be 2 stars.
Two stars. Breezy Johnson, U.S. Olympic gold medalist and world champion, of course, skiing. We all know who she is. She's
so
here
excited
with us.
you're here.
Yeah, just got in here, right?
Yeah, just last night.
Well, just last night. Okay, and she's your way. We're not. I don't know about us. Trisha Worthington is with us, Chief Revenue and Philanthropic Officer at U.S. Ski and Snowboard. Thank you guys for being with us. Where to begin? You come to Milken. Joe and I keep talking about sports. There's a ton of money in sports. A lot of pressure, though, on every sport to make sure that they are generating revenue. Trisha, let me start with you. Tell us what you guys are doing, how easy it is, how hard. You're all competing with for dollars, I should say.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have two main avenues of revenue at U.S. Ski and Snowboard, and that is primarily private giving as well as corporate partnership. And both are really equally supporting these athletes. Everything we raise through those two avenues support their training, their traveling, their coaching, everything they need to get to the level that Breezy did in Italy.
Well, it's incredible to have you here and wonderful to meet you. You're a hero for a lot of folks who watched you in action, and I'm wondering what kind of a reception you're getting here today, because you're a draw and you're an ambassador for this message, right? What kind of reaction are you hearing from those who are holding the dollars at Milken?
Yeah, I mean, it's really such an honor to be here. I think, I would say I'm not one of the most well-known athletes right now, but, once the gold starts shining around, then people are definitely excited.
Breezy Johnson.
Right. Well, but that starts a conversation in itself, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. I think, winning an Olympic gold medal, I don't think I really even could comprehend the value of it to the American public.
Right.
I think we as athletes, we work our whole lives for it, but I think there's a lot of pieces that need to come together. Ski racing in particular is very much, it's, I think, more similar to a Formula One operation than like what most people would expect from an Olympic operation. And we're trying to do that on a very small budget. So, for everything to come together at the right time once every 4 years is definitely a challenge.
Mean and mean can make you extreme. Like, I totally see it play out. Breezy, talk to us about after winning the medal. Like, what does that mean in terms of sponsorships? Do all of a sudden is the phone ringing like crazy? Give us an idea of how that changes things.
Yeah, it definitely changes things, although it's slow, right? So as athletes, I would say most of our income comes from 4 main revenue sources. For alpine athletes, you have your helmet sponsor, your kind of title sponsor. We're lucky enough to work with Stiefel on the U.S. Ski team, and they work with me personally. Well. They're a great company, and they're super invested in skiing and also expanding our appearance globally, which is super important for sponsorships. Then you have your sort of NIL deals, your Instagram deals, things like that. It's a small piece of the pie, and I feel like it's somewhat getting smaller as the market gets larger with NCAA athletes, etc. Then you have your endemic sponsors, your equipment sponsors, things like that. That's sort of holding pretty steady, I would say, but with inflation, I would say somewhat decreasing. And then you have your appearance fees, your, conferences that you speak at, your, keynote speeches that you do. So that obviously has grown a lot. Some of the deals, that I've had are definitely growing. And then, obviously you make more from your endemic sponsors through, bonuses and things like that around the Olympics. But, I would say, it's an ever-changing landscape for sure. And especially with, NCAA and those pieces, it's definitely evolving.
So Trisha, how do you grow a sport that for many people is not accessible and is known, at least, for having a high barrier of entry? How do you make this accessible to more Americans?
Yeah, I think doing a good job on the corporate sponsorship side and having those corporate partners help us raise awareness for the athletes, because we are such a small sport. So we work with big brands like Stifel that Breezy mentioned, but also Visa, Toyota, J.Crew, all exposing us to audiences that aren't endemic necessarily to the sport. So that would be a key part of that.
I feel like the last couple of years, hallelujah, women in sports are getting some recognition. They're getting the broadcast audience. I do feel like there is a shift going on in a big way. Investors want to invest not just in men's teams, they want to invest in women's teams. Tell me about, let me start with you, what you are seeing specifically.
Yeah, I mean, our women are killing it right now. Breezy, Lindsay,
in case anybody
Michaela.
forgot, women are better. But go ahead.
We have the strongest women's moguls team in the world, and so because there's so much hype around women's sports, it is attracting corporate partners to the team, and so it's definitely helping us grow that area of our support to a much bigger, size than it has been traditionally.
I want to ask you. I just want to ask Breezy the same question. Like, how? Because you started doing this when you were how old, and what you've seen your trajectory of how kind of the acceptance of women in sports, the success of women in sports.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in many ways, I think social media has changed the landscape, because in the ability for everybody to tell their story, I think people have realized that women have just as compelling of stories as men do, and I think that has, exploded online, the ability for women to market themselves. I mean, I think in terms of marketing, you often are talking about a form of investment, right? And I think people are now seeing that investing in women's sports through marketing is, that is an undervalued asset right now, and so to invest in it is, a much better return, whereas I think with men's sports, yes, there's great return on it, but also, people already have, it's not undervalued in the same way that women's sports is.
Really interesting. Just lastly then, what would be your advice to a young person living in the middle of the country without a lot of disposable income who wants to do what you did?
Great question.
I mean, I think to me, sports, is such a broad category, and I personally, I love skiing, and I think that for one, you see stories of skiers from places like Buck Hills, small ski hills, and I think we're working through, organizations like Share Winter and things like that to try to expand the sport to a broader socioeconomic background. And then as far as sports in general, I do think that there is a sport for everyone. I think that, yes, there are different kind of genetic advantages to different sports, but I think that everybody sort of has something for one of them, whether it's, the eyesight you need for skiing or the fast twitch muscles for sprinting. And so I think just trying a lot of different sports is what I would recommend to a lot of people.
Fascinating. Well, you've inspired so many Americans, and we thank you for being here. It's wonderful to meet you in person, and thanks for doing everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Both of you. Yeah, really wonderful stuff. So appreciate
Breezy
it.
Johnson and Trisha Worthington with us here, live at the Milken Global Conference in Beverly Hills. Dr. Mehmet Oz just walked in the room. We waved, and he came to sit down with us here at
works
Bloomberg.
here.
Well, hold on, did not wave. I got dragged with a hook. I was trying to watch my daughter.
You see how I tried to make that? He had no idea that we were going to do this.
Innocent as you think.
Well, we saw each other, we ran at each other and embraced. It's great to see you in Los Angeles. You're, of course, very, very much at home here. And I know that you're here, as you mentioned, to see your daughter on a panel. But there's a conversation at Milken that is right down the middle for you, and that's affordability in healthcare. It's something that we've heard a lot of executives talk about as they try to get their arms around this. And it's a solution that a lot of folks are waiting for. I know it's something that you're talking about right now at the White House. It's this K-shaped economy that we're in. This is one of the first areas where you can make a difference.
And we are making a difference. The reality of healthcare affordability is unlike other problems, like you can't afford the eggs, you get upset, the car costs more than you want, you get mad at the dealer usually. But when you can't afford health care, that destroys the basic covenant you have with America. You own a piece of the rock. That means you get to be on the playing field. If you're not healthy, then, well, that's not happening. And especially if your family is compromised. So I'll give you a couple stats just to blow your mind for folks who may not realize how difficult it is for a lot of Americans. 1 in 3 Americans, after they see their doctor, get a prescription, go to the pharmacy, cannot fill it. 1 in 3. Now, part of the reason for that is we pay 3 times more, at least we were, 3 times more for drugs made, even in this country, bottled here, than Europeans were paying for those exact same products. So some of the most common drugs we're using in America, like the weight loss drugs, the fertility drugs, basic drugs we use for fundamental recovery of health, unaffordable to many Americans. So
this is why Trump RX, right?
TrumpRx.gov, which, by the way, if you haven't heard of it, please, TrumpRx.gov. Before you buy a medication, at least check the price that's on TrumpRx.gov. Don't think of it like a discount site, although the prices are dramatically lower because they've been negotiated to be most favored nation pricing. But make sure that it's a transparency site for you. At least we demystify what drugs should cost you. And we are continuing to add drugs. We had an Oval Office event last week adding the 17th of the 17 drugs of the biggest of the 17 companies that the president wanted us to add. These are all the largest companies in the world, and so we're making huge progress there. The affordability issues also, however, touch on fraud. And part of the reason I've been spending some time in Los Angeles of late is that 1 in 3 hospices in the entire country, remember, hospices is where you go to die with dignity. 1 in 3 in the entire country are here in Los Angeles, not California. Los Angeles. Look around. People aren't that sick. They're not all dying in Los Angeles. When you see those kinds of variances in utilization, you start to suspect fraud. And in fact, that's exactly what's happening. We've shut down over 400 of these hospices in this country. When I say shut down, we suspended payments, so we're not giving them anything. And so far from the first batch, people aren't complaining, which means they sort of know they were getting caught. And when you see this process existing without some type of enforcement or integrity of the system, reinforcing the need to be able to run it correctly, it encourages corruption. And so you see more and more doctors selling their souls, literally their licenses, to be able to falsely claim people are about to die. You see business folks. A quick story, guy made a fortune, again, using this hospice loophole in California, and he was building a massive house with all his money, and the guy who was the carpenter remarked that he was in the hospice business. Then the plumber overheard the conversation and said, hey, me too. So literally, the contractors and the person buying and building the house, everyone's in the business. Because it's become so easy to defraud the government. We're stopping that.
Dr. Oz, there's fraud, and then there's a lot of great doctors out there and a lot of great healthcare providers. And I got to say, I talk with real Americans every day who are saying that the rollback in Obamacare, I mean, their healthcare costs are going up exponentially. I mean, that is problematic. I thought the whole goal was to reduce the cost of health care.
Well, I'm going to push back on you for a second. So we had 23 million people on Obamacare last year. Historically, it was about 12 million people. So it's almost doubled. But most of the people that were asking about these issues aren't quite as upset as you claim, because the average person went from being 82% subsidized, right? That's what they are now. And then how much did they lose? They used to be 87% subsidized. So what happened in Obamacare is a massive push to enroll people. But if you don't ask people to even put $1 up for Obamacare, you end up with a lot of fraudulent enrolled people. So I'll give you some numbers. Of the 23 million people, almost half never filed a claim. So let me ask you, if you have health insurance, you once in a while use it. If you never file a claim, you should be asking yourself, well, what happened? Why do I even have this insurance? And it turns out many people didn't even know they had coverage. Look at the numbers right now. We went from 23 million to 22 million.
I guess,
we didn't lose a lot of people.
I would beg to differ, and I would also say I'm a little concerned about administration policies and how we're going to retire in America in terms of Medicare and so on and so forth. Like, I do worry about that.
Medicare is healthier than it's ever been because of program integrity. If you shut hospice down so they don't defraud billions of dollars out of the system, I'll give you a number that's going to make this very clear. It doubles the life expectancy of the Medicare Trust Fund, doubles it. So anyone out there working their tail off who thinks Medicare is going to be there for me when I retire, if you know it's going to last twice as long, you feel good about it. And we're not doing anything. We're not touching Medicare in any way. The president has been very clear. He loves and cherishes Medicare. It will remain exactly as you know it, but it's going to last longer because we're taking the fraud out. And I think I'm going to shock you with this. The president saved Medicaid with some of these actions because we were looking at $5.4 trillion more dollars to be poured into basically legalized money laundering that would have bankrupted the system. So what we have done is put these programs on firm footing so they will continue to survive for the rest of our lifetimes.
I hope so.
Dr. Oz, would you come talk to us in Washington when we're back in town? I want to keep this going.
Of course.
Well,
it's a real pleasure.
I hope the panel goes well with your daughter, and thank you for stopping by.
I'm going to run in there and witness it right now.
Don't be late for us.
Thanks for coming in on our hook.
Exactly. We hooked them again, Carol.
They raced to the finish.
Ooh,
don't tell anybody.
That was really good.
We might have saved the best for last.
We worked that out. We saved the stars for the Breezy Johnson, and now
I know. Ben Kennedy is with us. He's Executive Vice President, Chief Venue and Racing Innovation Officer over at NASCAR. Jeff Gordon, you know who he is.
Needs no introduction.
No, needs no introduction. Vice Chairman of Hendrick Motorsports, Hall of Famer. Oh my gosh.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Good to have you here. I'm not sure where to start. First of all, when you guys come to Milken, what is it that you want to, who do you want to talk to? What do you want to do here? You know.
Well, we're excited. This is our first time.
Oh, is it?
We've
There's
never
a lot
been
of
to it before.
first-timers this year. So how are you like so far?
It's blowing our minds. It's just the who's who of everybody in business and business leaders. So yeah, it's great to be here and be on a panel.
Well, speaking of business, NASCAR is a huge business. Tell us about how things are going, and I'm just curious about how you think about the next phase of revenue growth for it.
Yeah, it's great. We're, in our season, so we're 78 years old this year. Blew out our candles on that a few months ago. 11 races into the season. Yeah, 11 races into the season, 6 different winners. Jeff was in victory lane this past weekend with Chase Elliott. So we have a good start to the season, and it's been a fun 4 or 5 years for us. Really, ever since COVID, we had a bit of a paradigm change. As far as leadership goes, a lot of the initiatives that we've been pushing, whether it's the next gen car, a lot of schedule innovations, and then we had our new media rights agreement that kicked off last year. So brought in new partners like TNT with Warner Brothers Discovery. Amazon Prime is covering 5 races during the summer. And it's been great from a distribution perspective and giving us an opportunity to get to some of those younger audiences.
As one of the greatest drivers of all time, you helped to mainstream NASCAR. You made NASCAR a household event. We're seeing F1 experience a moment now, and I'm wondering if you see that as competition or if this is the rising tide that lifts all boats.
I mean, obviously their presence in the U.S. has grown, so I've always looked at them as totally different.
It is totally different, but does it actually help you to just have more race fans in this country?
I think if motorsports is growing, I think everybody's growing along with it. So yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what we're focused on, right, is we've got some great characters in storytelling and rivalries. Chase Elliott, one of the most popular winning this past weekend, a new star in Carson Hocevar. So we understand that, we're always trying to link our TV partners to our fans, as well as our partners within the business on our race teams, to our drivers and to the storytelling. And I think we've got some great momentum right now, especially collaborating with NASCAR and what they're doing.
Yes.
Well, I want to ask you guys both, how do you expand the global footprint? And Jeff, let me kick it off with you in terms of NASCAR. How do you go about it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with OEMs, right? Right now, we're Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota. Dodge has recently come into the truck series and could expand there. But I think it kind of starts with where are the OEMs and their footprint. And it's always been North America for us, and that's been their focus. But if we can bring in some OEMs that look at it outside of just North America, I think that could be a great start.
Well, are those talks going on, Ben, at this point?
Yeah, so Ben, I told him I was going to give him all the tough questions.
A little we like headlines at
Let's make some noise.
No, we're excited about it. And to Jeff's point, we have always focused on new OEMs. So Ram came into their sport this year with the Truck Series, which has been great. And then Jeff and I have been talking about what does the future of NASCAR look like. So primarily a domestic sport. All of our races this year are in the United States. We had a race in Mexico City for the first time in our sports history last year, which was great on so many different levels. Have a lot of interest north of the border, and then we have interest abroad as well. We worked with Jeff and the Hendrick team on a Garage 56 car, so a car that went over to Le Mans a couple years ago. And I can tell you the fans there went nuts over it.
So are the OEMs in Europe or anybody in Asia, are you talking to?
Yeah, there's a handful.
You should see his.
He's eager to hear. There's a ton that we're talking to. So domestic and then international as well. And I think a lot of these different OEM brands, a lot of them are consolidating. A lot of them are working together now. So whether it is their flagship brand or one of the brands that live within their ecosystem, always having conversations.
I just want to add to that, something NASCAR's done, and we have a next gen or Gen 7 car right now. We're able to go to stadiums. We were here at the Coliseum in Los Angeles competing. We're going to San Diego to a naval base. So now we're able to go to places even outside of the U.S. and put on a great event, either a street course, a stadium course, and I think that really opens up the door for more global opportunity.
You mentioned Prime. Is that your exclusive streamer? Obviously, when you start looking to the future, the TNT deal is a big one, of course, but you need to have digital rights. At some point, people need to find you in different places. Where are you looking for streaming, and how big can that be for NASCAR?
Yeah, so we created the Amazon Prime deal in our new media rights package, which takes us through 2031. So they have 5 races in the summer. Yep. They're actually going to kick off on Memorial Day weekend for the Coke 600. And it's been great for us so far. What I didn't actually realize about it is you're not beholden to any broadcast windows or TV windows.
Right.
So they can come on whenever they want, and they'll leave whenever they want. So they've been really intentional about creating pre-race shows, post-race shows.
Is that an exclusive arrangement?
Putting a lot of data into it for the Cup Series.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so they cover those 5 races, and then the promotion that they're able to bring as well. If you go to the Amazon app or Amazon.com on race day, you're literally one click away from watching Cup Series race.
Very cool.
It's great.
Got to ask you about, Jeff, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael in the sport.
Competing against Michael Jordan.
Except for he's winning too much in typical Michael fashion.
So what is it like having him? He's a massive celebrity. I don't even need to say that. His presence at the ownership level for NASCAR. Just got about 30 seconds.
Well, he loves motorsports, right?
Yeah.
We've seen him in motorcycles. We've seen him around NASCAR races even before he became an owner. But I've never seen him as engaged as he is right now. Of course, they're having a lot of success. Daytona 500 win.
Yeah.
But as an owner, it's great to have Michael so engaged from an ownership. And I think it's only going to help the whole sport grow.
Fantastic. Ben Kennedy, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say, what I love to see about it is, and Jeff touched on this, is he is truly passionate about the sport. He is a fan.
That's great.
Comes to a lot of races. He grew up going to a lot of NASCAR events, so it's neat to see that come out of him.
Thank you for helping us animate some of the great stories that are coming out of Milken here. This was fantastic.
You said it was a race to the finish.
A Hall of Famer.
Right.
Yeah, I think you guys won, actually. Jeff Gordon, Ben Kennedy, great to meet you both, and thank you for sharing your insights with us here on Bloomberg. Alongside the mayor of Milken, I'm Joe Mathieu. This has been a lot of fun.
The gem of Washington.
I don't know about that, but you're very
The king of Washington?
No, they already have one of those.
Thanks to our team.